for Life with Bryan and Brian, a podcast of Oakhill Baptist Church.
On today's episode, we're doing an interview with Evan Gray.
Hello.
Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back, Brian.
Hey, Brian.
How are you doing? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
All right, good.
Good.
Excited to be here recording. This is different for us because normally we have some extensive notes. Sometimes, depending on who writes the episode, there's pages and pages of notes.
And sometimes there's like one.
Sometimes there's just a bunch of scripture. And you have to riff on it. No.
But today, we're going crazy. Zero notes.
No notes.
Zero notes.
Yeah.
So who knows
Because we're
what today's
interviewing
gonna be like.
Evan Gray, our new worship pastor at Oakhill Baptist Church today.
Evan, can you say hello again?
Hello.
There he is.
Before we get into it, I want to remind people to like, subscribe, do all the things that Matt from Evansville wants you to do. And
we did receive a strongly worded email.
Yeah,
from,
he was really mad.
Yeah,
We upset. He's kind of a snowflake, and so we upset him.
His feelings. It's deep feelings.
Yeah, he was even tempted to eat meat, so that was, I know, it was tough.
I'm praying for him.
Praying for him.
Poor Matt.
But send us your feedback to the email f4l@oakhillbc.org. It's all in the show notes, and we're getting tired of saying it, but we got to remind you every time to do this.
Because, listeners and followers and stuff. That's what podcast people do, okay?
That's right.
We're just trying to
the
be
best
like
thing you can
cool
do
people,
is share with your friends.
That is true.
Let them know about the podcast, the episodes that you like. And
seriously.
If there's topics or things you want us to explore, we are open to hearing those suggestions. So.
Absolutely.
Well, today we've got Evan Gray here. He's already said hello.
Hello.
And we're excited to welcome you. You've been the worship pastor at Oakhill now for
2 months, 2.5 months,
2 months, end of August.
Okay.
It
feels like you've been here a lot longer than that, which is a good thing.
In a good way. Yes.
In a good way.
Okay. All right.
Feels natural.
I'll take it.
It did feel natural. You came on our staff. You fit really well with everybody, and I think you just are have the personality of just kind of get along with everybody.
Yeah.
Is there anyone that you just don't get along with?
Like on our staff?
No. No. In life.
It's like, well, actually, I need to talk to you.
I think maybe like one person in my entire life.
Yeah. You're just a pretty get along guy. That's good though. That's good.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of, I don't know what the right word to say is. Our staff, we have strong personalities and opinionated voices sometimes. I don't know. Is that the right way to say that, Brian?
I think that's a very
not me.
good way
Not
to
me.
Right.
But other people.
Least of all.
Yeah, least of all. But Evan is kind of even keel, even tempered. It's added that layer of
it's nice and chill.
Nice and chill.
Like that.
I'm just here for the one-liner jokes.
That's good.
They are
that
good,
I mostly
though.
say quietly to whoever's sitting right next to me.
Yeah.
That is I've experienced that a couple times. Mm-hmm.
Well, tell us a little about yourself. I know one of the most interesting things about you, well, maybe not most interesting, but one of the things you are a PK.
I am.
So
Yes,
that kind of had you move around a lot. So where do you
Pastor's kid.
kind of claim as home?
So
Pastor's
I claim Broken Arrow, Oklahoma home, which is a suburb of Tulsa. I was born there, although I believe at the time we actually lived in Neosho, Missouri, which is a small town in Missouri that nobody has ever been to nor has ever heard of, where my dad had just moved to, I think, weeks before I was supposed to be born. So my mom traveled back to see her doctor, and I was born there in Tulsa. But when I was 7, we moved back to Broken Arrow, and that's kind of where my earliest memories are.
So you're an Okie? Is that what they call them?
Yep. Yep.
You still hold to that? Do you have attachments there?
So my grandparents lived there just until recently, and my sister still lives there. So we go back every once in a while, not as often as I would like, but I have a dream one day that I will move back there. But and it's not too far from my in-laws. My in-laws live in Northwest Arkansas, so it's like an hour and a half away or something. Mm-hmm. So it'd work nice for my wife.
Incidentally, that's where I was
family.
born,
Yeah.
was Northwest Arkansas.
Yeah.
So the Arkansas connection.
Arkansas.
Yeah.
Got it.
But most recently, coming to us from Chattanooga,
Yes,
Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Yeah, what were you doing down there?
I served at Red Bank Baptist Church for 3.5 years. And then before that, I lived in Dyersburg, Tennessee, which is north of Memphis, about an hour and a half. It's like right on the line. So it's like if you're in Dyersburg, you can get to Arkansas, Kentucky, and Missouri in like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. So you're kind of right in the corner there. But I was there for about 7 years serving First Baptist Dyersburg. And that was the first church I served. Really great community, but small rural community. I think the county has like 30,000. So moving to Chattanooga was, drastic,
big change.
drastic difference. And even here is a drastic difference. There's stores to buy things there outside of Walmart.
Yeah.
Well, Evansville is the area where it's funny because people from all over, because we're kind of in between like St. Louis, Louisville, Indy, Nashville. So people outside of Evansville come to Evansville. You'll see the county kids come to the mall here, which I always think is pretty fun.
Kind of funny. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your testimony. How did you come to faith in the Lord? Being a pastor's kid, was that kind of a hard thing? Did you have any, rebellious times, anything like that?
I did not have any rebellious times, at least from my perspective. Perspective is carries a lot of weight. But I always had this struggle to not I don't want to disappoint people, and so that kept a lot of things in check. Specifically to my dad, I never wanted to disappoint my dad. So that kept a lot of rebellion in check. But I grew up like I said, grew up a pastor's kid. So grew up in church. Was there Sunday, Wednesday, probably most of the days in between. We were heavily involved, especially in the music ministry, as my dad was a worship pastor. So we were involved in children's choirs and youth when that time came, and did all the VBSs. And but for me, it was we were in Missouri in Jefferson City, Missouri, at Concord Baptist there, and my dad had brought in this group called Heaven's Gates, Hell's Flames, which is like this group that comes in and uses your volunteers to put on this play. And it's these short skits of like people's last moments in life. I remember like there was 2 construction workers sitting on scaffolding, and moments before one falls off and passes away, and a few other instances like that. And it just, I was 7, 8 years old, and I remember for the first time just like realizing, if I die right now, I don't know him. I'm not going to spend eternity in his presence. Like I'm lost.
Wow.
I'm a sinner.
Yeah.
And it just made the weight of my sin, the seriousness of my sin, like it made it concrete and putting it in a nice picture. It helped that my dad played Satan.
God. He was a music minister?
Yeah.
The music minister playing Satan.
Yeah. All right. How I remember it is he had like makeup on that looked like Darth Maul.
Yeah.
But he says it looked more like Gene Simmons' Kiss. But
okay. Well, I'm familiar with this production because this is a part of my testimony as well. And so, God used that in my life as well. So just kind of made it a concrete picture for me. And then as most believers, I had an infant understanding of who God was and what it meant to believe in Him. And it really wasn't till I was about 12, 13, 14 in that season of life where my family walked through some really dark days. My mother, we had just moved to Tennessee from Oklahoma. We'd been there maybe 5 or 6 months, and she was diagnosed with stage 4 lung, spine, and brain cancer. The doctors had given her about 6 months to live. We were incredibly blessed to
to have her for another year and a half.
Wow.
There were a lot of great times, a lot of hopeful times that she was going to beat it, but ultimately she went home to be with the Lord. But it was really through that season of life, that year and a half, where my faith kind of grew in a way that made it real.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like this, head knowledge, this understanding of, oh, God exists and I need to serve him. But it was like a real, this is an active thing I got to do, not just a passive thing that I did one time. As I watched like my parents serve the church, even though they really could have taken like a back seat and just checked out for a little while because they were, dealing with a lot.
Yeah.
But like my mom, even in her worst days, was loving on the nurses and encouraging them and the doctors and all the church members that were coming to do our laundry and drop off food and that kind of stuff. Like they were always like trying to love on us, but usually left more encouraged because of how my parents interacted with them. And, it was also really through that like my desire to serve the local church grew. Kind of those first inklings, those first drawings of wanting to be in ministry, just because I saw how incredibly impactful the local church can be, the local church family, that you're not doing this life alone, that you have people to share burden with, and that you have people to encourage each other and cry with and everything in between, and how incredibly fulfilling that can be, how satisfying that can be as we walk through this crazy life together with other believers. But
yeah, I think that one of the things in your testimony that we've talked about on this podcast before that I think is important, when children come to faith in the Lord, that's kind of the beginning step. We can't just say, and I think it's okay to talk about heaven and hell with children in a, you don't want to scare them into salvation, but there's also the work of discipleship, which I think you've hit on really nicely, because so many kids, it's like they get saved or they make a profession of faith and the parents are like, oh, okay, job's done.
Right.
It's over. They're saved.
Right.
But I think the work of discipleship, and I don't know, you had some challenging circumstances that made you guys turn to the Lord, but your parents could have turned away from the Lord, but they turned to the Lord. And I think that was helpful in helping you understand what a relationship with the Lord looks like and to grow. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah. Like seemingly the darkest of days is when you should press into them instead of turning away.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. I was just thinking like, what a great testimony your parents had to suffer well, I'm sure they weren't perfect in those times, but the fact that they did suffer well and go through that hardship well, I mean, that trains you to be the man of God that you are today, right? Sure, and I've heard you say it, like you did say it here, like you've talked about how you deal with problems in life and how you kind of feel about them. Like, how do you interact with hard things in life now, having gone through something like that?
Yeah. Somebody sitting at this table actually walked into my office maybe it was last week, and said, why don't you stress about things? Something to that effect.
That was me.
Yeah.
Because I was stressed.
I wasn't going to name names. There's two options. I could have just said Brian, and nobody would have known.
It's okay. I'll admit.
And the truth is like, yeah, I do have strong feelings sometimes. I do stress. I do have burden. It's not that it doesn't exist, but when you walk through, especially in like such a pivotal developmental age of 12 to 14, having something so huge happen as your mom passing away, who I was way closer to her at the time than I was my dad, and so to have something like so drastic happen in your life like that, everything else kind of gets compared to it, and then you start to think, oh, well, in reality, most things around us aren't life and death. They're
not a huge deal.
It's not like, I'm picking between this blue paint color and this green paint color, and if I pick wrong, somebody dies. Right? Like, it's not that.
Well, right. And I think that's where I think everyone has these moments where everything, like if you have a crisis in your life, of whether it's a national crisis, emergency, whether it's something personal. everything that's not important kind of falls away.
Yeah.
Now we can't live in that, and things come back, but I do think it's helpful to remember where things kind of stand, because you're right. As you go along and you get further away from the crisis, at least my experience, the unimportant does begin to rise again and become, quote, life or death, you know?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, I think it is good to, like you just said. Yeah, that's right. Keep things in perspective. While living through life, and we talked about this in our dealing with death episode, and so Evan, if you ever get a chance to listen to that, would love your feedback to make sure we didn't get anything wrong. Sure. That would be helpful. But let's talk about your call to Oakhill. Like you've been through a lot of things. You have a lot of experience leading worship elsewhere, like you told us. How did the Lord bring you to us?
Yeah, by his divine will. Really, and I know that's a silly answer, but like
a theologian and a scholar.
In no way in the mapping out of my life did I think Indiana was ever going to be on it in the timeline. But yeah, I was serving at Red Bank Baptist. I was serving at one of their campuses on Signal Mountain, and so. I'd been there about 3.5 years and just felt, for me, it felt that it was time to kind of take that next step that in challenging myself in leadership opportunities, in having more responsibility. Kind of my role there was kind of a supportive role. Yes, I led a campus, but ultimately I had like somebody ahead of me that took the brunt of responsibility, and when things went wrong, he got yelled at. Not really, but
it was on him more than on you.
Now you're getting yelled at. No,
that's right. And so I just felt like it was time for me, professionally and just in my growth, even spiritually, like just to take that next step in challenging myself, getting out of my comfort zone. And somehow through when Sarah and I started talking about that, we just put our resume out there on a few websites just to see what would happen, and pretty quickly Pastor Allen reached out, and he was, I think, maybe the second phone call I had, and through that we talked for an hour, I think. And if you spend any time with Pastor Allen, it's like, yes, it was an hour long, but it felt like 20 minutes just because, it's so easy to talk to him. And then it felt like 2 hours because he uses an immense amount of words.
This is people's experience. Other people we've had meet him that have come on staff. It's like they have that first meeting, and I don't know, he has some kind of holy, God-given gift to like just
draw you in.
Yeah. And I think people always feel really cared for and loved, even in that first conversation that they have with them, which is true as it goes on. It's not just the first conversation, but they feel it the first time, because there's some people that honestly just, they don't give a good first impression. Yeah. And, I've known people in my life that I'm great friends with, but it's taken
takes time.
It takes time to develop that. Like, he is immediately endearing, you know, and that I think that's helpful.
Yeah. So he was a big part of it after that first conversation, and we had a few conversations. We met him and Sarah and I met him and his wife Paula in Nashville because it was kind of halfway point, and had dinner together because it was in the middle of the afternoon. But just even after that experience, Sarah and I walked away and just really felt a strong calling to come serve the people here and serve alongside him, Pastor Allen, and just felt like it was going to be a great opportunity for us to be encouraged along the way, be challenged along the way, have that opportunity to have more responsibility, but also have a pastor that cares about you as a human being, not just as a worker bee,
a ministry machine.
And so after our visit here, after we came and visited, we came not on a Sunday and then came for a call weekend, and each step along the way, even, as far as selling our house and all of that, like God has really just one step after another, one stepping stone after another has just made the path so clear for us.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we've loved being here for the last, I guess 10 to 12 weeks, something like that. We're slowly getting settled into our house, and James is loving it.
Yeah. So you're married for
Yes.
how long now?
This January will be 5 years.
Okay, and you have 2 kids.
We have 2 kids. So yeah, we've lived a lot of life in 5 years.
Yeah.
I've actually not.
Well, and I was going to say this when you were talking about your ministry experience. You're like the unicorn in the sense, when they always say, I want someone who's under 30 with 15 years of ministry experience.
Yeah.
And you're pretty close to that, You're under 30 and you started doing music ministry when you were 19.
Yeah. Full time. I was hired right after I turned 20, I think. I started like leading worship weekly on a consistent basis right at the summer after high school.
Yeah. So it feels like you have a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Even though you're still so young.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But yes, I do have a wife. We've actually met online because living in small town Dyersburg, there wasn't a large pool of single ladies my age, let alone those that love Jesus.
Lonelyfarmers.com.
Yes, pretty much. That's your choice. And there wasn't
Lonelypastors.com.
I think you have a new. That's
Oh, hey. Got his new side hustle. Start a website.
I don't know how I feel about it.
But yeah, there just wasn't.
No, and it's funny you say that because there are so many people, like that's so commonplace now. It's just,
I know so many solid couples that are like that met that way.
Yeah.
And when that first started happening, it was like, oh, that's interesting. But now it's like, oh, okay, that's normal.
Yeah. It's a part of how people meet nowadays. That's cool.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah,
that.
it's not. To me, it wasn't really any different than a blind date.
Yeah.
Right.
Somebody setting you up with somebody.
I'm not sure outside of God. Not sure how we got matched up really because she lived in Little Rock at the time, and that's 4 hours away from Dyersburg.
Oh, wow.
So, it definitely was outside of the 50-mile radius that I had set it to be. So I'm not really sure.
Oh.
Wow.
I'm not really sure.
Oh, that was me. Sorry. I actually hit that.
I feel like I'm at an award show. And
I hit the board. Wrap it up. No, sorry. I must hit the board by accident. But anyway, yes, no, that is crazy. Yeah. Huh.
So it was a Sunday night. I was at we were about to have Bible study or Bible studies. And she sent me a smiley face.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I responded. I was like,
you're like, it's on.
Let's go.
And I had been on, I think, for like a week. I had been on there for like a week. And she sent me a smiley face. We started talking. And then that Saturday, so like 6 days later, I drove to Little Rock. I had lunch together, and then we spent all day together, and then I drove back.
Were you nervous as all get out when you were driving to
sure.
Little Rock? I mean, that's a long way for a date,
Sure. Yeah, it is.
Wow.
It is.
Wow.
God was really like
In that.
making that work.
But it was
everything.
It was like though I knew she was gonna be something special. Like the very first meal we had together, because we went to this chicken place. I don't remember what it's called. And we sat down. And it was packed, but there was an open table, so we sat down and we got our food. And about 2 minutes into us eating our first meal together, we've known each other for 15 minutes. These 2 random people come up, and we're at like this 4-person table. And they're like, hey, can we sit here? Like, can we sit with you?
Oh no. It's the first date you've
And I
had.
was like,
Oh, my goodness.
yeah, sure. And so
Like, what do you say?
we had our first date like 3 inches away from other people.
So you're trying to talk to Sarah, and these other people are trying to talk right next to you. Oh, how awkward.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's so awkward.
But she just rolled with it, and I was like, oh yeah. I mean, that's kind of what ministry's like,
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Like,
You just
like
No,
that was actually a test. Those were people that you knew. That was a plant. And you're like, come over. Just
that's
a few
actually
minutes.
a very appropriate illustration
Yeah,
for
it's like,
ministry life. Yeah.
people are gonna do odd things sometimes. People are gonna butt in. You just kind of got to roll with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
You
that's
know.
great.
It works out.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that we from our first date to getting married was about 10 months. So we got married pretty quickly. Got engaged maybe 3 months in, something like that. And
Wow.
yeah, lived a lot of life since then. Got married, had James about a year after that, maybe a year and a half after that, and have lived in 3 towns. Bought 2 houses. I've had 3 different jobs, and she's had 5 jobs or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've packed it in there for 5
Well,
years.
let's shift gears a little bit and talk about ministry for a minute. We do want to talk more about some things, some personal things about what you like to do and things like that. But talk to us about what do you love about being a worship pastor?
I think music is a unique vehicle for people to experience and express the truth of who God is and what His Word says. Reading it and studying it and hearing preaching is one thing, and it's great, but it's hard sometimes, I think, for people to really express how they're feeling about those things.
Yeah.
And music does an incredible job of doing
Well, we talked about that. Remember we talked about the Psalms and the poetry?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, and how the emotions
Yeah.
come out, and all the emotions.
They teach us
all of them.
to deal with those emotions in an appropriate way, to turn them back to God, even when it's an emotion where you're
what we would normally call a negative emotion.
a negative emotion where you're angry or you're sad. You can, the scriptures, especially the Psalms, teach us to turn that back to the Lord, and that's what I love about worship music.
the Psalms. Praise the Lord. I love the Lord. Can you smite that guy?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's an accurate description.
But yeah, and I always grew up in music, so it was especially church music, singing praise and worship music. I always sometimes find it hard when people say, what kind of music do you listen to? I'm like, I do it for a living, so I listen to a lot of Christian music.
Right,
Yeah.
Well, and
Outside
it's like,
of,
what do you prefer? And that's kind of like when people ask me about worship music, it's like I like all of it. There's certain things. I mean, I don't like every hymn, but I like a lot of hymns.
Yeah.
I don't like every praise and worship. Right. I like a lot of praise and worship. So
I
it's
like
just
specific
funny.
songs.
Yeah, it's funny when people ask you that, because it's like, yeah, I kind of like both styles of music.
Yeah.
We got both kinds, country and western. It's from the Blues Brothers.
So yeah, I love the opportunity I get every week, also to stand in front of a mass of people, of my like-minded people who are declaring a single thing together. That we love the Lord, or the God is great, or whatever it may be, whatever lyric we're singing, they're doing it in one voice.
Yeah.
And it I kind of wish that we could just bring people up on the platform, because it is a very moving thing to just hear this wall of sound of people declaring their love.
Well,
for
preaching
God.
is sort of, and teaching is that broadcast ministry where you're proclaiming and people are receiving. And I love your aspect of worship where we're doing this together, and it's everyone is participating, and there's not really, I don't think there's really much that's like that. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean,
no. Yeah, it's like kind of when we go to conferences, or I always think about going to T4G and just singing with that group of people. But, but it's kind of in the setting is like, in a stadium or whatever. And so it's around you, so you kind of get to experience it while you're being a part of it. And that's always very moving.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good point. I like that.
Yeah. And I view my responsibility as getting people's hearts and minds prepared to receive those things that Pastor Allen's going to bring, or whomever's going to bring. We're preparing the way so that they're ready, that they're
right.
That they've been able to lay down those burdens of the week or what have you, and kind of focus so that they can be filled up with God's word.
Yeah. It's hard. I will say this, and maybe you have some insight into this, I have a million things racing through my mind when I come in on Sunday, and it's different because I'm worried about church stuff, but I'm sure other people are like this as well. And, how do we kind of lay those things aside? Not that, and I've heard people say you bring those things with you to church because they're a part of who you are, but I also don't want to be distracted by them, Well,
and I think, because the part of the point of what we're talking about is, we're talking about these emotions that we're able to express and process biblically, properly. And I feel like, as you're singing, I hope that's what people are doing is whether they know it or not, processing out, things that they're feeling through the week, so that when it does come time to hear God's word, they've already dealt with those emotions. It's like trying to have a conversation when you're frustrated, Sure. Like it doesn't really work until you're able to calm yourself down and really like let go of some of those things. So I hope, that's what usually happens to me.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right that you do bring those things with you, but it's almost an exercise that you have to do, a habit that you have to build when you come into worship, that those sorrows or those angers, like you are bringing them to the Lord. Like you're not just bringing them so that you can pick them up and walk out the door after you're done. Like you are bringing them to the throne of God to lay them down, knowing that He can relieve those, He can satisfy those, He can focus you, relying on His strength, not your own.
Yeah.
I think that's that. I think sometimes we, in our walk with Christ, like we just think it's a switch that we can flip, and in reality, like it just like exercise, it's a thing you got to work at. It's a thing you got to build a habit about, reading the Word or praying or doing this, which is laying your burdens down and giving them over to Jesus, relying on Him and not yourself.
Yeah, that's really good.
What can we do as worshipers to help or encourage in worship?
I really I think the number one thing is participation. It's incredibly discouraging when you look at you're planning the worship service. You're like, these are the 4 songs that are going to bless the people this week, and then you get there and they're like, Jesus love, they're not they're not into it at all.
Well, and some churches are very much like concert-ish,
Sure.
where there's a performance.
It's like it's something to watch.
This is not our church. We want participation. We want people to sing out, even if, like in my case, you may not have a great voice. You still want to sing out.
You sing all right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I this is a personal.
Tell my wife that, because as we go along worship, she's getting further and further away from me. It's like, you're throwing me off,
I was wondering why she was doing that.
Yeah, she's like 4 feet away by the end of the worship set,
Yeah, this is a personal preference, a personal practice thing for me, that in general, there are definitely exceptions, but for the most part, I try to limit how many solos there are in a Sunday service, because I think that when people are singing when it's somebody on the platform singing by themselves, like it kind of discourages everybody else to participate. Oh, they're singing a solo, I need to listen. Whereas if everybody on the platform singing, it kind of automatically encourages those in the congregation to participate.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think participation is the number one thing that people can do to not only just like encourage those on the platform, but like add to, like you're part of what we're doing. It's not those people up there
right
doing
performing.
They're doing the worship,
Like
and I'm just here. Yeah,
your voice is adding to the glorification of God. Your voice is adding to the music that we're making, and it's going to encourage those around you. Like even if it's not so great. I point to Brian because he said it. Even if it's not so great, like it is going, because the people around you are going to know your testimony. They're going to kind of know the things that are going on in your life. And so, like when you're struggling with something and you're able to sing in Christ alone, my hope is found. Like that kind of can encourage people. Like, oh, he's going through that, but he's able to declare that hope,
right,
or whatever it may be.
Yeah, one of the things I think is a wonderful, this is kind of a personal thing, like I think it's a wonderful testimony to see men singing. And I think there's a kind of a stigma that like men don't feel, men don't feel,
or that singing is girly,
and singing is an emotional thing, that like, I'm a man, I don't sing. And what I love is I love when I see a big burly man who just looks like a woodsman, singing his heart out. I'm thinking of specific people even right now that I just love to see them sing, because you can be manly and strong and emotional.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird that you said that, because immediately when you said that, I thought of there's a picture of my grandfather who passed away, I don't know, 3.5 years ago or something. My mom's dad, and there's a picture of him. he's singing. He's got his eyes closed. He's got his hand raised, and that wasn't his personality.
Yeah.
Really. He built movie theaters his entire life. He was a construction worker. He was this hairy man.
Yeah.
Short little guy, but constantly on the go, constantly building stuff, and kind of that gruff man that you're talking about. But there's this picture of him. He's got his eyes closed and his hand raised, and my mom had sitting next to him, has her hat on because she was bald at the time because of chemo and treatment and stuff. And it's just like it's exactly what you're talking about, though.
Yeah.
He kind of came to a point in his life where he was like, oh, she's walking through this. My daughter is walking through this terrible thing, but praise the Lord anyway.
That's cool.
That is. Man, men, if you wanna lead, part of this is a little tiny piece of, I think, leading your family well. Sing when you are at church. Sing, even if you're not a good singer. Sing, and really process your emotions, because what I find is that the burliest, gruffest, manliest men are some of the most emotional ones, and we just hide it, Yeah. And so let yourself process those things properly, and we do that through singing to the Lord.
You had a good example. Your dad's a good singer, and
he is a good
sings
singer.
Loud.
Yeah, and he's a Marine.
He could kill you with this pinky. Well, let's talk about some things, personal things. Things you like to do. Do you have any hobbies or things that you like to do in your free time? I know, like, when you're a parent, that's funny because it's like,
seriously.
Well, like, you're in ministry and you have a family, and it's like, what's a hobby again?
Especially when the kids are really small. It's
right.
Like, no, there's nothing.
My hobby is watching Paw Patrol.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I mean, my family likes to bake together.
Oh, that's cool.
We do that a lot.
I enjoyed some of your bread at our last small group meeting.
It's weird in our household. Like, Sarah is a great cook, and she, like, for dinner, like, if she was to walk into the kitchen and be like, "Oh, we got these 5 things. How can I make dinner?" Like, she's really good at that. Just kind of figuring out how to make a good meal. But when it comes to baking, like, I'm significantly better, mostly because, like, I have the patience to, like, measure things out.
She cooks by feel.
Yeah. Teaspoon, let me scoop it up a big one.
It's funny you say that. My stepmom, I called her one time because she has this great apple pie recipe, and I was trying to make it, and I was like, "So what's your apple pie?" She's like, "I think it's about a cup of this, maybe this," and I made it, and it turned out horribly because she cooks by feel.
That's how my wife cooks, and I hate trying. Like, she's like, "Hey, can you help me cook?" And I'm like, so you have to tell me exactly what to do. And she's like, "Well, I think it's like this." And I'm like, "Oh, you make this every other week. How do you know?"
She just does it.
She just does it. She just knows. It happens. And it's like magic. I don't know.
That's my mother-in-law. She, like, will give a little slip of paper with the ingredients, and, like, that's it.
Yeah. Here.
Like, what is this? The British Bake Off here? Is this the technical challenge for the British Bake Off? Come on.
Maybe the oven temperature. That's it.
Maybe that. Yeah. You don't really
Pa Hollywood is not judging this. Okay, give me the instructions.
But yeah, we love to bake together. James has really been getting into it as he's getting older. We have this stool that he can get up to counter level.
That's cool.
Help. But he wants to try every ingredient. So it's like butter, big finger of butter. Eat that.
Hey, whatever. Whatever.
Dry
Butter's
flour,
good.
which is terrible for you. I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do that a lot together. I do like sports. I don't play a lot of sports, but I watch a lot of sports.
I did learn that about you because we went to a conference and we shared a hotel room, and you were watching. You had to get the game because of your fantasy football team.
Oh,
so.
yeah.
And the cable was out, which
seems a little disappointing.
I'm doing so bad.
The cable at the hotel was out, and so he pulled it up on his laptop and watched it. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. He had Wi-Fi.
Yes. Yeah. But if I have to pick a sport, soccer is the one I'm going to pick. World Cup's coming up in a couple.
Yeah. Tell people who your team is, and then tell them who that is.
Oh yeah. So I'm a Queens Park Rangers fan. Shout out, go URs, and I don't. They're in West London. I don't really know how I got into watching them. They were in the Premier League at the time I was picking a team. They're not great. They're doing a lot better this year. They're not great, but they got relegated, so they're in their second division of English football. Just YouTube it. There'll be a whole video of explaining the pyramid system.
It's really complicated.
It's so complicated.
Really complicated.
So yeah, they're in the second division.
I was just looking into this the other day, and I was like, okay, I would love to see this in we should do this in our National Football League. This would be awesome.
So in
have
theory,
the lower class and the higher class of football, and you get relegated. That would be awesome.
So in theory, if you were in England, you could start a team with your friends and play on Sunday. It's called Sunday League, and you could theoretically work your way up all the way to the Premier League.
It would be almost impossible.
Yes, you'd have to be super good. Yeah. At some point, you'd have to have somebody put in a lot of money.
Yes, because you have to get players that are really good.
Yes, yeah. But in theory,
yes. In theory,
theoretically.
But so another thing I know about you is musically, you really like soundtracks, movie soundtracks. That's something you're into. What got you into movie soundtracks?
Oddly, the first movie that I remember watching and thinking, oh, the music's kind of important in conveying the story, it's important part of the story is the movie Pearl Harbor.
Oh wow!
Just the ability the music had to convey the emotions, the mixed emotions. If you've ever seen that movie, the mixed emotions all of those main characters have, their willingness to go sacrifice for their country and leaving their love behind and sharing a love with their best friend. It's just the music. It was the first time where I was like, music is important to telling a story.
I had a similar experience where I realized that the music was actually making the movie better, but it was with Transformers, so not quite as good of a movie.
Robots in Disguise.
That's right. but you're right. Once you notice it, once you realize what's happening, you're like, oh,
it is interesting. Most movies, especially epic movies, have a score that goes along with it, and if you ever watch a movie without a score, or you can definitely not a silent movie,
but they literally don't have music.
Yeah, it's really crazy, and then they can use those silences to an effect sometimes, where they don't have the music. But I remember, I really love the Marvel movies and how they use the music to really
build things.
Intensify the action and the drama. It's really.
But all the big movies that have won all the awards have amazing scores.
Sure.
The scores themselves usually win awards and stuff.
Are you a big John Williams fan?
John Williams, if you were to ask me,
he's the quintessential composer.
Tell us your favorite.
Right?
Tell us your favorite.
If you were to ask me who my favorite was, I can't say him because he's the benchmark, right?
Right.
With Star Wars and Jaws and
Superman,
all of those.
I had a John Williams, or I don't know if I did or my parents had the John Williams score compilation.
Yeah,
it had all that Superman and Star Wars.
Was it
and
Indiana
everything.
Jones too?
Yeah.
Jurassic Park.
Man,
yeah,
he's done a ton of
See, that's what I'm saying. All those movies,
a ton of award-winning ones. And so he's kind of the benchmark for especially what movie score is today.
Yeah.
My favorite, and I'm gonna butcher his name because he's French, is a guy named Alexandre Desplat. He
did you just say Desplat?
I find him I like what he writes, but I also find it interesting that he works by himself. There was an interview he did where he was talking about Hans Zimmer, who did all the Batman movies and Inception, and Hans Zimmer's done a lot of movies that you have seen, and but he has this massive team of people that are helping him
do it all.
Yeah, and Alexandre is no, I just work by myself because it's just how I like to do it.
Wow, what are some movies he's done?
So he did the last 2 Harry Potter movies.
Oh,
he's done all the Wes Anderson movies. So Fantastic Mr. Fox, and
yes,
Grand Budapest Hotel, and he did
the Isle of Dogs.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he did the that movie where they're building a computer to code. I'll think of it. It's got Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yes.
You're talking about the impersonator? No.
It's got
imposter.
Is it
no,
Keira,
I know what you're talking
Knightley's
about.
in it too?
Yeah.
Is it
Benedict? Yeah, they're building it's British, World War II, and they're building a computer to decode.
I like that movie
German.
a lot.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
It was a good movie.
But he did that as
well.
Wow.
Okay.
And then of course Howard Shore because Lord of the Rings, of course.
Yeah, so tell us, what is your favorite movie of all time?
Also
being the best movie of all time.
Yes. Well, Lord of the Rings as a series, but if I have to pick one of the Lord of the Rings, it's gonna be the second one, and just because I like the Ents and
the Ents, the tree people.
Well, we all know we love Lord of the Rings,
which I know. Like,
I mean, we've talked about this as one of our favorite movie
Yes.
series before. So
Yes.
we all love that.
Brian
We
doesn't want
acknowledge
us
it.
to talk about Lord of the
No,
Rings.
no. It's not that I don't want to talk about it. I don't want this to become the Lord of the Rings podcast, where we're going to break down everything.
I know, but this is a podcast by Bryan and
That's
Brian
on a
with
separate-
Evan. That's a part of
That'll
who
be
we
a
are.
separate future podcast. all
Agreed.
on its own.
He said it. Listeners, you heard it.
No, not
here.
episode.
John, you heard it.
That's when you're starting on your own.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
Me and Evan will start one. So
No.
anyways.
I do love Lord of the Rings. I think that there's other. I think for its genre of the epic movie, it's the best. It's definitely the best. I think there's other better movies when it comes to different. I mean, because like in my mind, movies are broken down into different types of genre.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I'm a big period piece guy. So
Yeah.
like one of my favorites is The Darkest Hour, which is about Winston Churchill, played
Yes.
by Gary Oldman.
Dude, that movie is so good.
Yeah.
That's
And
crazy.
it's like his first days of prime minister in World War II, and like leading up to the famous "We'll fight on the beaches, we'll fight on the landing grounds" speech. Which, fair warning, don't actually look up the original. You can listen to the audio of Winston Churchill really giving it. Far less inspiring than Gary Oldman's.
Really?
version. Yeah. It's much more like, "We will fight on the landing ground." Like, it's much more subdued.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's funny.
Yeah.
British, they're British, so I mean,
None of the "we will never surrender."
Yeah.
None of that. So
They had to make it a little more Americanized
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the American public, I guess.
yeah, but yeah, I like period pieces a lot.
Yeah.
Gladiator, of course.
Oh yeah.
It's great.
Best Christmas movie of all time.
What?
You never heard it's a Christmas movie? Gladiator?
Oh my gosh.
It's got snow, I guess.
Gladiator and
Die Hard.
Die Hard.
Oh, I've heard the Die Hard argument. I never heard Gladiator.
Really?
before.
Yeah, it's got snow.
It's got snow. Christmas is snow.
Okay.
Christmas is coming, guys. It's coming.
Wow. All right.
Anyway, so is there anything else about you? Anything that you want, especially for our church people or any of our listeners to know? Like, if we had to like encapsulate who is Evan Gray, how would we do that? I know that's
I
like a
don't
super
know.
hard question.
Yeah,
to
I
ask.
don't know.
Just put him on the spot there.
I
know.
You
Big
know, if
time.
you ever want to bless me, I'll just say this. If you ever
Yeah,
wanna
see,
bless
this is what I'm
me,
talking about. This is good stuff.
I will accept any book that you give me, even if it's like books you're trying to throw away in your house.
This is good for me to know.
Yes, I will. I will take it. To
You
the
like
detriment
books?
of my wife. Yes,
Really?
I like not even just like I like to read. I listen to a lot of audiobooks just because it's easier.
It's
to do.
convenient and easy, yeah.
Plus, I can turn up the speed and get through a book rather quickly.
Yeah.
So I listen to a lot of audiobooks, but I like to read, but I like having bookshelves full of books that people think I've read.
Spoken like a true pastor.
True
it's like,
pastor, yes.
It's like you have a stack. I think I actually put the stack on my bookshelf finally, but I have like 20 books that I'm wanting to read. Slowly.
Always.
Yeah. And
So, what I'm also hearing is like maybe we need to like if we really want to bless you, like buy you a bookshelf. Like maybe I'm hearing that too. I
Well,
don't know.
in our new house that we just moved into, like there's 2 built-ins next to the fireplace. I mean,
Nice.
lots of bookshelves. And because I like books so much, I organized them on one side of the fireplace, nonfiction, the other side fiction, by alphabetical order by last name of author. The nonfiction side is full. I can't buy any more nonfiction books. I can only buy fiction books.
What's the last thing you've listened to, audio or read?
yeah.
Or the most interesting?
I'm currently there was a sale on Audible, not a sponsor.
Could be
though. Audible.
But they were having a sale on C.S. Lewis's like complete works.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm currently listening through those.
Oh man,
That's
so
awesome.
good.
Yeah.
Is that sale still on?
Maybe. Or maybe it wasn't even a sale. Maybe it was just like a new thing, like a new bundle they were.
Yeah.
This is good to
selling.
know.
Yeah. But it was like,
Great.
1 credit for
Yeah,
like 10 books or something.
man, we just listened through
38 hours of CS.
Have you gotten through? I really enjoy The Great Divorce. Have you gotten
I
through
haven't
that one
gotten
yet?
it, but I did just buy Also, fun fact about Evan is even if I listen to the audiobook, I
want
want
the
a
copy?
physical copy.
Yeah.
True.
So I just bought
So
that one
true.
because it's the next one in the line.
Yeah.
Mere Christianity was first, so
Yes.
I'm finishing that
Yeah.
one. And then,
The Great Divorce is more of an allegory, so there's a little bit more. It holds your attention a little better. Mere Christianity is great. You have to think.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
You definitely have to think.
Yeah.
You have to
I
engage your
pushed
brain.
the back 30 seconds button a few times.
Yeah.
What did he say?
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
Well,
Well, I feel like we know you fairly well now, or
Yeah.
at least some of the important things. And
If you are in Evansville, get to know Evan and Sarah. They're a great family, and we appreciate him being our worship pastor.
Yeah.
So we're excited
very happy to have you
about
on
how
the
God is
staff.
going to use you at our church as we continue to, grow, make disciples, love the Lord, lead people in worship and relationship with the Lord.
Yeah, that's right.
We're glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today, Evan. Listeners, thank you all for listening. And I guess
We'll see you next time. Set it up on a separate feed.
he's going to love it. We need to have like another channel, another podcast that's like, the behind the scenes of this podcast. That'd be a good idea. That's a good idea.
Behind the scenes of this podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
No one would listen.
You don't know that.
Absolutely no one would listen.
Brian's such a negative Nancy sometimes in the mornings.
Listen,
It takes us a while to warm up to get to a good place.
our podcast is going well. We have a lot of listeners now.
What is a lot of listeners?
Well, this year we have had as many downloads in this year as we've had the previous 2 years.
Oh, nice.
Or a year and a half, whatever. So yeah, we're doing really well. We've really upticked in
Definitely started doing that.
2022. Yeah.